Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking you through the Arken Optics 5-25. This is the EP5 with the VPR MIL. Here's a few of the specs real quick. Field of view is 25.3 to 4.9 feet at 100 yards. The reticle position is in the first focal plane. It's just the way I like it for heavier magnification. It does have a zero stop. The amount of mils per revolution is 10, and they turn counterclockwise. The weight is 39.2 ounces. The objective diameter on this one is 56 millimeters. The tube size is 34 millimeters. Again, this is the VPR MIL reticle. Adjustment range for the elevation is going to be 32 mils. The windage is 16 mils. It does have a side parallax. It goes up to infinity and all the way down to 25 yards. And yes, it is a true 25-yard parallax. Not every scope that says 25 yards is truly 25 yards. The length is about 14.02 inches. It comes with a sunshade, and the eye relief on this optic is right around 3.4 inches. It's 1/10 mil for the corrections per click, and the illumination color is red. Mine is in a black coloration to this point. That's all they have for colors, and it does have an included battery. It runs on a CR2032 for that illumination. Okay, so this is not my first Arken optic. I've had a few other ones. The 4-16 on the far left there, the 6-24 in the center, just slightly longer than the 5-25. You can see the overall length is not that different between the three of them. The two on the left are SH4s, and then this is the Japanese Glass 5-25 on the far right on my competition NRL gun there. And I'm really happy with my Arken optics. I've got tens of thousands of rounds down the barrel, especially with that 4-16. I think the most popular one on the market right now is probably the 6-24, but now I believe it's going to be the 5-25. I think it'll fill that gap, but the reticle is exceptional in all three. All right, switching over to my phone for audio and recording for just a second here. Sorry about that audio, but we're looking at my 4-16 SH4. So that's a 4-16 model by 50mm objective. Anyways, not really assessing the glass right here, but just kind of showing the reticle. These both have the same reticle. The 5-25 and the 4-16 have the VPR MIL reticle. It is an excellent reticle. It's my style. I like it very much. I don't typically shoot it any lower than what you see here because there's not enough reticle holdover down there to really make use of that when it's that tiny. If I need big field of view, I maybe would just use binoculars, but sometimes I use an optic, and I'm maybe spotting for a friend, maybe glassing for deer, I guess, something like that. But on that lower end here, that's what the reticle looks like. For me, obviously, I can't make out the center dot, but I can see all the way down to about that 15th mil. And so after the first 12 mils that have windage marks, then you have a bit of a chevron or pinnacle there, and at the bottom of that transparent part, the thick bar starts, and right where that starts, that's about 15 mils right there. So you essentially have 15 mils of holdover, plus this particular model has 36 internal E. That's really impressive. So it's 36 internal E plus the 15. You can really stretch this thing out far, but the limitation, guys, is the glass. It's going to be the glass, and I don't think anybody is denying that. Nobody's hiding it. It's not some big conspiracy or secret as some people think. Yeah, you know that when you elevate that turret and you go to the end of range with, kind of an economy price scope, the glass isn't super high quality. And if you were to try to hold over at the very edge of the glass and dial to the end of the range with this 4-16, it's just not going to be very good. It's going to be a little milky and harder to see. And so I think it makes sense to leave it at 15 mils for this particular optic. But here's a difference between this one and the 5-25. I think the 5-25 actually is still pretty usable. It's pretty decent glass, and you could go beyond the 15 mils if you wanted to, but I'm just going to magnify this up a little bit. We'll go up to 16 power. Now at 16 power, I can use that center dot, but I'm going to tell you that at 25 power on the 5-25 model, I can really use that center dot. I can see it so much better. It is a small-sized, I'd say precision center dot. All the other numbers and reticle features, they're easier to use even on lower power. If I bounce it back down to about 10 power, I can still use those really well. I can even see the center dot a little bit. I go down to about 7 power. That's really hard to see the center dot, but I can still see the little T mark, the square, There we go. I can see the kind of 4 lines that point in towards the center dot, so it's still usable. Hunting wise, those are the things that illuminate with the side illumination, so it still makes a lot of sense. Not bad, but when I go up to 16 power, this is where it often would live for me because I could make the most of that reticle, and it's in the center of the glass, and I would like to dial to the center of the glass right there and hold on the precision dot, using that for target practice, hunting, or even a little bit of NRL 22. That's kind of what I preferred with this particular reticle on a 4-16. The 5-25 though, it allows me, because of the better glass quality, to use more of the reticle in different ways at different magnifications with less complaints. Real quick plug here for Scope Cam. That's the device attached to my optic right there. That's how I was getting the footage of the reticle without it being all shaky. You can record your hunts, your target practice, your shooting, just using your phone. It's a really simple device, and I'm just going to give them a quick plug right here because they've been fantastic to me and useful on the channel. That's how I was previously recording the reticle. This right here is just using my regular camera, and I'm just showing you again, this is the actual 5-25 now. I've switched over to that and going between 5 and 25 power. Obviously cameras aren't the best at picking up the trueness of glass and clarity, and I don't have my parallax set for that distance. I'm just showing you the reticle here, and I'm going to tell you that I really like the reticle. The reticle itself is really great for precision shooting. It's great for, I think, competition shooting where you're shooting at plates or small targets. I've used it in NRL 22 and done, I think, reasonably well with it so far. Again, it's the same reticle that I had in my 2 other Arkens. It's just I have another power of magnification to add to that. Really happy with that. The illumination is one thing. I'm just going to say I was not able to get daylight bright illumination, and that really doesn't bother me because I only use it during kind of transitional times, early morning, late at night, and it works fine for that. Side parallax is very, very smooth. It's great on all the Arkens I've ever had. Side parallax is great. One difference though, one caveat here I'm going to make is going down to 25 power. This one is truly a 25 yard setting for the parallax, and on my 6-24 specifically, I felt that the side parallax went down to more like 28 yards. I didn't think it was truly a 25 yard parallax. Now that's really splitting hairs. I know it's not a big deal. I just want to say this is an improvement that I've seen in the EP5. It is a true 25 yard parallax, crystal clear, and perhaps I can just notice that better because of the improved glass quality. That's perhaps one part of it. The knurling on all of the dials, the turrets, the parallax, and the illumination is all really good. It's done very, very well. And in Minnesota, if it's cold out and stuff stops moving, if you start having issues with levers and dials, you know, you're gonna probably suffer in your shooting, basically. Here's an example of something that's just really, really smooth, and it's even cold, you know, it's 15, 18 degrees, something like that when I was shooting on this particular day. And the dials, even the ocular lens here, lots of range of travel, and it moves pretty freely even though it's cold. And I found that with all levers, all dials, all knobs, moved very, very well, and I was able to get the reticle nice and sharp for my eye. If you've never done that before, just look at a blank surface of some sort, take a peek at the reticle, and just give it a little turn until it's sharp for your eye. It's very important. It's pertinent to shooting well because you focus on the reticle and the target is more so in the periphery, and this dial worked very, very smooth. Features on this are all exactly how I would expect them to be. Just enough resistance, but not stiff, not difficult to move, although it's nice to have the cattail or the throw lever on top of the magnification here because I'm going between 5 and 25 power. That's a big range of movement, and it's just smoother. It's just better to get a big field of view quick on 5, or maybe more like 10 power, and then if I need to bump it up, I'm shooting a 1/4 inch target at the last match. I'm trying to think how far it was away, maybe 50 yards, maybe 25 yards, can't remember, probably 50 yards, but at 50 yards, you know, I can jump between those 2 powers with relative ease and just using my one finger and not grabbing onto the ring, although the ring itself moves freely enough. I'm not going to complain about that at all. Check out the turrets here. 10 mils per revolution. That's an improvement over the SH4 series, and this one still has 32 mils of internal travel, which is fantastic. It's more than most optics companies are offering you, and the tracking is true. It's trustworthy. I've proven that to myself and on the internet over and over. Many, many reviews that are going to say the same thing. It's all been trustworthy. I like to leave a tenth below my 0 for NRL 22 at closer targets. All right, and here is the SH4. This one was the 6-24. And turrets sound pretty much the same, but I'm gonna say I feel like there was maybe just a smoothness to the SH4 over the 5-25. And I think that it's probably just that the 5-25 is really new. I don't prefer the smoothness. I actually like the newer turrets better, but it could just be that the 6-24 was really broken in, and I've smoothed them out just slightly after heavy use and lots of dialing, as I mentioned before. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the improvements and areas that I noticed right away. And number one is going to be the glass, okay? Shooting close distances, NRL 22 distances, out to a couple hundred yards, it's maybe harder for somebody brand new just to pick up an SH4 and then pick up a 5-25, and maybe they don't immediately catch that the 5-25 is better glass if they're not discerning. But to me, it's really, really clear immediately as soon as I looked through the 5-25, because I had a good memory of what the 4-16 and the 6-24 glass looked like. I've just got so many rounds through guns with those optics on them. When I grabbed the 5-25 and I gave a look, I knew pretty quickly, yes, there's a difference here. Right. It is brighter. Okay, it's got a 56mm objective. That could have something to do with it. It's clear, it's better. This is ED Japanese glass. And as I magnify the optic up to 25 power, if I take a SH4 at 24 power and the 5-25 at 25 power, it's just really apparent. And the further I go out, the more clear it is to me that the glass is better in the 5-25. And I think a discerning eye can see it.
Kneeling too. Yeah. Man, I got all the excuses in the world, but it's pretty steady. I'm happy with that. Tripod does well. The glass, I can definitely tell a difference though. I can see it's a little more clear. It's way more obvious at distance that it's clear, and especially it's a 5-25, so I get a little more power in there. Yeah. I can tell when I crank it up. If I crank the 6-24 and the 5-25 up, I can tell the 5-25 is a little more clear at distance. But at close ranges, it probably doesn't matter as much.
As I mentioned before, it's a 56mm objective, which is an improvement, and I like them a lot. I'm going to tell you real quick that these flip cap covers that they sell are bomb-proof. These things are awesome. I was telling them a couple years ago, yeah, you could send some out to the channel. I'll test them for a while, but Minnesota winters, they're harsh. When things are cold, plastic tends to break, and I didn't have a huge amount of faith in the beginning, just being upfront about that. They've lasted a couple years, and I've got more than one pair of these, and I like them. I'm going to say go ahead and buy them. They're trustworthy. I pretty much won't have an Arken without them at this point because they're just so good, and the multiple settings, the way that the rubber fits around the eyepiece, it hasn't split between the hot and the cold, and I'm just really happy with the design. So well done, kudos on the scope cap covers. Those don't come with the optic, but you can add them in the package for a pretty reasonable price, guys. So I've started this optic off on my 22. It's an NRL 22 rifle. That's one that I like to give to my friends when they come shoot with us, and I'm really fond of the setup now. It's a 16-inch barreled CZ457, and with this optic, it's really, really capable. I can actually reach out a little past 500 yards with this comfortably, probably 600 yards at the end of the glass. It's a cool setup, and the reason that I like to put them on 22s, especially optics like this, because it has a huge amount of internal elevation. It has that parallax that goes down to 25 yards, which is necessary, so it's really an ideal NRL 22 gun, especially if you're trying to set up a base class rifle without breaking the bank. Now you can have Japanese glass, a 56mm objective, and 10 mils per rotation with a zero stop, and I think there's just a lot to offer there. 25 power that's usable, it's not milky, it doesn't get bad, and I'm shooting right here at 325 yards, and it's just real comfortable in that range. 600 yards, it's been real comfortable. I've tried it out a little bit past there, but just like my other Arken optics, you're going to see this one on 4 or 5 more rifles. That's what I like to do with optics. I like to move them around, test them on different rifles, and push them out past 1,000 yards. Eventually, this one will be on an optic, or on a rifle rather, that will be out past 1,000 yards as well, and I'll get even more information from that point. But so far, I've been able to look out over great distances and get lots of opinions of the glass quality, and it's going to be probably an optimistic review to come. I don't have a lot of negatives, and before I get to any critiques at all, I just want to remind you this is a $529 optic. I'm not going to compare it against a $4,000 hand-fitted optic. I don't think that makes sense. I think it's a mistake when other people do it, and I don't want to make that mistake. They're not trying to compete with that. They're mass-producing an affordable, high-quality, and high capability optic that I think should be compared against optics of a similar price point. And I'm going to say it has a lot going for it. There's a couple things I maybe would like a little better. If they could find a way in the next design for the spring to not protrude so far, the cap cover for the spring on the bottom side of the optic, sometimes that messes with low rings or different types of mounts. That could be one thing. Some people have complained about a minor amount of eye box issues on the lowest power, maybe a little bit of fish eye at certain powers. I really didn't notice it that much. I certainly didn't have resolution issues. I didn't have issues with the edges of the glass to the degree that I would say the SH4 has. And I just see a lot of improvements here. I'm very, very happy. I think it's easily worth the full price of $529. I don't know many optics that compete with this at this price point. There may be some up and coming, and I'm going to keep it informed about those. But where I'm at right now is you're going to see this optic on more rifles on the channel. Stay tuned, keep watching, and like, share, subscribe. That really helps my channel, helps me beat the algorithm right now. But this optic isn't going anywhere. I'm not going to sell it. Just like the SH4 series, I'm going to trade it around in different rifles. I'm going to run it out pretty far, early morning, late at night, during peak light, during extreme cold. Hopefully I get one more sub-zero test in here. And I'm going to give you all the information that I can, guys, to help you make an informed purchase. But as it stands right now, I'm very, very happy, and it is an improvement over the SH4 series. And so thank you, Arken, for sending this out to the channel. Great job. Kudos. I think you're doing really great work, and a lot of people are getting into precision shooting because of the option that you're bringing them at a very affordable price point.